No, they're not, but that's still a massive amount of money.
I understand.
Okay, being 7 o'clock, we're going to get started. Just going to take a second here to... Okay, being 7 o'clock on April 25th, we'll call the Plan Commission meeting to order. Call to order and roll call.
Mayor Chilson, absent.
Oh, there he is, coming through the door. Why don't we continue with the roll call and then we'll let the mayor take
Okay,
over.
all right.
If he shares that cupcake with everybody, we'll be a lot more pleasurable.
Oh, no.
Jim Benash, absent. Jared Holter,
Here,
Jan Brock,
Oh, present.
Paul Gleason,
Here.
Knut Temte,
Present.
Craig Breitsprecher,
Present.
Stephen Knott,
Present.
Mayor Joe Chilson.
Present. Thank you. Approval of minutes of the previous meeting. So move.
Second?
Motion made by Skip, seconded by Paul to approve the minutes of the previous meeting. Discussion. Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Abstentions? So moved. Public input. Anyone wishing to give public input, please step to the podium. You have give your name and address, and you have 3 minutes.
Excuse me. My name's Jacob Birch, 810 Richmond Street, La Crosse, French Island. This is either my 6th or 8th time being on the agenda, so I just want to take a quick moment on record to thank both the subcommittee and planning commission members for their time, as well as Chief Dominic and other members among the Onalaska Planning and Zoning Committee. I appreciate the time and due diligence put into this through over the last few months. I'm here tonight to help answer any other questions that might be out there. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to give public input? Second call, anyone wishing to give public input? Third and final call, anyone wishing to give public input? That portion is now closed. Consideration of possible action on the following items. Review and consideration of a preliminary plat submitted by Davy Engineering, 115 6th Street South, La Crosse, Wisconsin, 54601 on behalf of Logistics Development Corp. or Group, LLC, Jacob Birch, J. Yankee, 2102 State Road 16, La Crosse, Wisconsin, 54601, for the development of 25.06 acres with 16 developable parcels located on an extension of Crestwood Lane in the town of Madera, tax parcels number 9-13-0 and 9-14-0, extraterritorial plat review. Jared?
As Mr. Birch stated, this item has been on the Plan Commission agenda a number of times, has been discussed by the subcommittee and the Plan Commission. In your packet tonight, you can see the proposed layout of the proposed subdivision, which it will be built in the town of Madera. So this ultimately will go to the La Crosse County for review. Also tonight, I've handed out a City of Onalaska Fire Department checklist that has been performed by Davy Engineering as the engineer for the developer, with a variety of answers to items that came up at the last Plan Commission meeting in red to explain what they would do to meet the checklist. I guess with that, we'd open up for questions. Fire Chief is also here if you have questions of him in regards to the checklist.
Questions by anyone? Craig?
Just want to verify that it appears that some of the concerns that I had related to serviceability from a firefighting perspective really have been resolved. Is that kind of what you've put in place?
Yes, I really try to take an extra effort to put in the time to make sure I looked at all possible ways aside running public utilities up there and how to make that area safer to build homes. So that checklist that I went through with Fire Chief Dominic, working to provide just a lot more opportunity to improve safety in more rural development areas in general. I think a lot of those items we went through, I think, would be things I'd recommend to anyone in a rural area.
And just from my perspective, I want to thank you for the effort that you put forth in that. I think it's needed, and I think you folks as developers realize that, and you're doing the right thing for the right reasons, and I'd recommend everybody get up there because it's going to be a wonderful place.
Yep, thank you.
Chief, do you have anything to say on the issue?
Yes, Mr. Birch, by completing the checklist, took a look at the conditions that slow down firefighters when it's somebody's worst moment. And within that, every 2 minutes that we can't get in there to get that fire out, that fire doubles in size. We sat down, took a look at what was there. Anything, again, in red, as Jared mentioned, is what Mr. Birch had responded to the checklist. And I just want to add that by his decision to do this, that home fire sprinkler will activate generally in as little as 1 minute or less. 90% of the fires are contained by the operation of just one of those sprinkler heads. The early activation of the system contains the fire before it has time to grow, and in most instances extinguishes the fire prior to the arrival of the fire department. It minimizes the production of carbon monoxide, which is the primary cause of deaths in fires. It also reduces the fire, smoke damage, and the amount of water used, protecting the environment, not having as much runoff. And when both fire sprinkler and home smoke detectors are installed, the risk of dying in a fire is reduced by 82% compared to a resident without either. So it's also making it not safer for the families that consider their home being the safest place. It's making it safer for our firefighters as well.
Okay, thank you, Chief.
Thank you.
And you are satisfied with this?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you. Jan,
So when you have a,
speaking to your mic.
gotcha.
Get yelled
When
at.
you have a sprinkler system that operate, this will operate off of wells? Each
That's correct. They'll operate off the private well.
Okay,
private well, not a
Private
community well?
Yeah, well, or a community well, whichever one they have.
It runs off the house's infrastructure, so when you frame in a plumbing system with the new plumbing technology, they're using the plastic pipe that's red and blue.
Right.
When you frame that in, they're able to also frame in sprinkler systems. Those do have a separate system, a pumping system within the house, its own water pump to continue the pressure needed when it arises. But the technology of the type of plumbing that's used now enables those sprinkler systems to be added fairly efficiently and effectively.
But their water supply is still a well?
Their water supply is still well, correct. And the intentions of this is to catch a fire before it escalates to a magnitude that would require multiple truckloads of water or multiple amounts of water to put out.
Jared?
Part of what you're getting at is there's no fire flow suppression that they can hook the fire truck up to, but you're only looking at a limited number of gallons to put out a fire with a sprinkler head. So they'd have enough. You know, imagine it's probably less than a shower head. Then if you have a shower head, that's what the sprinkler head is. So you're only running one or two. If you get to the point you're running three, the house has probably had an explosion or something that the whole house is on fire. But as the fire chief stated, a lot of times most of the fires start very small and then get bigger. So you're trying to suppress them at a point where you're using less water and it's a very small fire at that point. So. And they'd obviously know this going in, that they would have to size the wells to make sure. But I think even just a regular residential water supply in the city of Onalaska with a 1-inch service can run a fire suppression system in a standard, let's say a regular residential home, so.
Okay. Paul?
Jared, are these cul-de-sacs larger than a typical residential cul-de-sac?
Yeah, they're 100 foot in diameter. Our city zoning code only calls out 80 feet. So we do have some in the city that are down to 70. But that's with more compact urban development, but they do exceed what the city standard normal zoning code would require.
Is there a need for that? I know how touchy it can be to create a large flat spot on a steep side slope. And 20 feet wider doesn't sound like much, but it can mean a massive amount of additional excavation. So is that necessary to be larger than normal?
If you look at the plat that's in the packet tonight, you can see the how far they're grading out for the cul-de-sac at the end of Crestwood Lane, and I guess we haven't been involved with the design, not being that's not city ownership, but Fire Chief, did you require the 100-foot radius as part of your computations to meet the fire code? Typically 80 feet, you can turn around, at least do a three-way turn of a fire truck if needed, even the larger ones, but,
And that's the reason why we did design it at a larger, for both bus and for fire department turnaround. So there
You're
wouldn't have to.
comfortable it'll work with the terrain, your
Yes,
engineer's comfortable?
correct. The topo and the elevation provides the ability, yes, for to do it. Yes, is it probably a little more expensive, but if it's what makes it safer, then we have the ability to do the 100-foot if needed.
One last question.
Go ahead.
Do you have an estimate of the cost of the sprinkler systems?
I have a
Obviously,
few.
looked
There's
at-
actually an association. It's a pretty large item in the western states, so maybe not as popular in the Midwest. But there's an association. I don't have an exact cost, but I've been in touch with them and working to maybe do some type of group-type program for all the houses using the similar system.
So you don't know right now? You
I don't know the exact.
have a good estimate?
I don't know the exact cost. I have a rough estimate.
Okay.
Okay, what is the wish of the commission?
I'll make a motion to approve the development, and again, my thanks.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay. Motion made by Craig and seconded by Paul to approve consideration of preliminary plat that has been submitted. Discussion. Paul?
I have a question for Jared. A lot of this seems to be on top of a hill, and there's going to be potentially significant additional stormwater drainage downhill onto city properties. How is that going to be handled? Is that being addressed?
We do not have a full submittal for stormwater yet from Davie Engineering, but we have had discussions with them. And the plat that you have in front of you tonight is very hard to see, but that's one of the conditions that are on here is the note the location of the stormwater easements for drainage and ponds, because we're requiring them to put some drainage easements in, and they're going to have some ponding areas uphill to take to pond some of the stormwater before it would release down into the city lands. As you know, this drains down into a future development area for the city of Onalaska. It was a number of years ago, but that was designed with some future development happening up above it. So they will have to maintain some ponding areas up above, and we will make sure we work. Ultimately, La Crosse County would have the jurisdiction because of the county supervision of the plat, but we will work with La Crosse County, and I'm sure we'll be able to review that.
Our biggest piece with the Cross County has been the stormwater management. We have 2 plans right now in place. One is a worst-case scenario that will install 4 separate water retention areas. There's some natural valleys that will be reinforced, and as the water travels down them, they'll settle down into 4 separate retention basins. As Mr. Holter mentioned, there is a corner of this property that was purchased years ago as a stormwater management area. That's why this property is somewhat of a peculiar shape. The northwestern corner that looks like a baseball field shaped was purchased as a stormwater management area. We are working to reestablish possibly some easements and the ability to work in conjunction in the stormwater management pending a time frame of any future development in that area.
Okay, thank you. Jan?
Jared, I have a question here. Condition number 6, note lots 12 through 16 are above the maximum elevation for City of Onalaska water service, even if in the future this...
Yeah, they're currently our secondary zone, our high service zone that we see in the Country Club area and Greens Coulee area can only serve up to an elevation of 930. And that elevation of 930 is, the water service is marginal at that elevation. So if some of those lots, it's a note that in the future that those lots may be above that elevation, so they will either have to stay on a private well or use some other technology to boost the water up to those 4 homes.
Okay. Any other questions? Hearing none, all in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Abstentions? Motion carries.
Thank you.
Item 5, review and consideration of the general boundary agreement between the City of Onalaska and the Town of Madera. Jared?
We have been in communication with the Town of Madera regarding the boundary agreement. Unfortunately, I could not, due to schedules, I could not get a meeting scheduled between Town of Madera representatives and the City of Onalaska before tonight's meeting. We do have a meeting scheduled for May 4th where we'll be discussing what items the Town of Madera will bring forward for comments after they had their Plan Commission meeting earlier in April, where they gathered comments from the public and what their Plan Commission is bringing forward. So until we have that meeting on May 4th, I don't have a lot to report. We'll be bringing this back again to the June, or there'll be the May meetings for June council.
I'd like to make a motion that we continue this to the next meeting in May.
Okay. Motion made by Skip,
Second.
second by Paul, that we continue this to the next Plan Commission meeting. Discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Abstentions? Motion.
Question, is there a timeline that we have to approve this? Or no, okay, there's no time, okay.
No, there's no timeline. Okay. Entertain a motion to adjourn?
Did you take a vote on that last?
I'll move we,
Okay, go ahead.
You just voted.
Okay, with Jan threw me off, that's.
Okay.
I'll move we adjourn.
Second.
Motion made by Paul, seconded by Skip, that we adjourn. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Abstentions? We stand adjourned at 7:25. Thank you.
Have my agenda.
Good first meeting to come to.